Welcome, everybody, to Inside Boxing Daily on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Inside Boxing Daily is brought to you by MyBookie.ag. You can go to the GruelingTruth.com page. At the top of that page, you'll see a MyBookie.ag banner. If you click that and make a first deposit, you will get up to $1,000 cash back on 50% of that first deposit. We are also brought to you by the Retired Boxers Foundation with Alex Ramos and Jackie Richardson. You can find them on Facebook. I am your co-host, Mike Goodpaster, and right now I'd like to welcome in a man who tested not once, not twice, but 17 times for little blue Viagra pills. Jeremiah Preisser. How you doing, Jeremiah?
Good evening. And that's, you're off by a couple. It's actually 19. I'm going for 20 here. I'm taking my wife up to Vail for a weekend, and that's going to be my 2-0 mark. Hey, man.
Is that what you call your penis?
Vail? Yeah, well, no, that it wouldn't even make sense if I did, honestly, because Vail has some big peaks that mine's like a molehill,
Oh
so.
Man, don't say that on air. You can't admit to it.
No, it just is what it is, man. Good thing I'm a nice guy, or else I wouldn't have a wife.
All right. I thought it was just because you were a millionaire.
No, that's not it either. No, so
it's
just.
All right, so we're going to start off with the same drum beat we've used the last two nights, only with a different tone, and that is in a devastating hat trick. Heavyweight contender Jarrell Fat-Ass Miller has now tested positive for a third test for a banned substance for his canceled June 1st fight against Anthony Joshua. The two previous failed tests were for the banned substance GW1516 and human growth hormone. Now there's a third failed test, which is for EPO. So, I think yesterday when Jarrell Miller said this was all bullshit, when we didn't believe him, I think we were right, Jeremiah.
Yeah, it's not always good to jump to conclusions, but in this case, we got it right. I saw this on Rick Glazer said one of his friends said that if you're going to fight Jarrell Miller, you might as well bring your hazmat suit. I mean, this.
Well, you know what? In a couple years, when he comes in the ring, he'll probably glow.
He's well on his way. Shit, with all the stuff that he's injected in his body. I preface with one thing, and that's we got to be careful with some of the stuff we say, because I think a lot of sports fans they're pretty backwards with this whole PED thing, but they're starting to catch up a little bit. A lot of people they equate roids to PEDs, and really PEDs have become so complex that I mean, you have PEDs for just about anything. I mean, if you want to recover quickly from a workout, if you want better stamina, if you want to burn fat, I mean, these drugs are tailor-made now, so you can get something that will just do about just anything you want to, and we're on the verge of genetic editing, so this is pretty serious stuff, so I just want to, again, preface with that. But, Miller's basically doing anything and everything under the sun. I mean, he's trying to build muscle, he's trying to burn fat, and I mean, one would only suspect that he's probably been doing this for years before, and somehow he's still gaining weight. It's like, I don't know, the dude can't stay away from the buffet line. And so, to combat that, he's got to use these drugs and stuff. I mean, it's unfortunate that, he's got to resort to this, and with 3 PED tests, he's going to be he's going to be a long running butt of a joke for a long damn time. But it just, this is what we got. I mean, Miller, hopefully he gets his, his justice, and, he learns from this and he stops doing that crap. But, I don't know what he becomes without the PEDs. I mean, again, if he's, going from 270 something pounds to, 300 plus pounds while he's doing it, again, what is he going to do?
Doing it right.
Yeah, he's messing up, man. He might want to contact a guy like Memo Heredia and, get him on a better PED plan, because, whatever he's doing or whatever his head guy is using, they're not doing it right.
Well, and I think it answers the question how a 300-pound man can not get tired.
Yeah, exactly. And, hey, John, we like you, man. Our guy on, the weekly show, he's been talking about how, guys like Lipinets and Miller have, quote unquote kickboxer stamina, and maybe there is some truth to that. I mean, Lipinets does have a pretty high work rate. I think he threw over 800 punches in the stoppage that he earned. So I think he was well on his way to being over a grand. But in Miller's case, I think instead of chalking it up to the kickboxer stuff, I think it's pretty clear where and how he was getting that beforehand. He could punch a lot for a big guy. We were all surprised by that. But again, now I think we know why.
Yeah, I was going to read his statement, but I don't care. He basically just said he messed up. So, I mean, as long as he says he messed up, I think we should forgive him.
You know what? At least, I mean, the first PR release where he's talking about, hey, the truth will come to light. He's an innocent man. I get that in a way, and it sucks because he's lying, and a lot of us are going to condemn him for that. And, he's earned that. But I do think when guys are, truthful and they're like, hey, I messed up, just ask for forgiveness, I can get down with that a little bit more, to be honest with you. I mean, this.
Yeah, but yesterday he said he didn't. Today he said he did because he got popped 2 more times. And this is not the first time he's been busted for it.
Yeah, is there another test that's
5 years ago, he tested positive for the banned substance methylhexamine after his glory kickboxing match against Mirko Cro Cop. Miller lost the fight by a decision and was subsequently suspended by the California State Athletic Commission after he tested positive.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. I wasn't aware of that, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm familiar with Mirko Cro Cop, who's been, I don't know if the guy's still fighting, but I mean, he's a relic. He's a piece of furniture over at MMA. He's been doing it so long, but no surprise. I mean, especially after he's been popped before, no surprise. But yeah, he's gonna be on a tight leash after this, and you would think that the commission would hand down a hard sentence, but it's boxing, so you never know what you're going to get here, especially when it comes to New York. A lot of times they don't have their shit together. So I'm not, there's going to be some sort of repercussions here, but I don't know what it is. Again, I don't have high hopes. It's boxing. I never do. But again, hopefully the sentence is tough.
All right, we have a question from Carlos. He said, I heard Michael Hunter might be Joshua's next opponent. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, I like Michael Hunter. To me, he's a better option than Manuel Charr.
Wow.
Manuel Charr, the only reason he's even semi-relevant is because he had some, bullshit WBA trinket, which he was gifted. I mean, I don't know what he's been doing for the WBA. Maybe he's been on his knees over there because the dude's just not that good of a fighter. I mean, anybody who scans through his resume sees that he was starched cold, by Maris Breidis a few years back. And I think Breidis weighed 213 pounds. And if you look at the shot, Breidis hit him with this beautiful uppercut, and Charr fell right through the ropes. I don't think he fell down like Bernard Hopkins did, after he got knocked out by Joe Smith Jr.'s, but it was a substantial stoppage. I mean, it was serious business. So, Charr to me he's a non-option. The only way I would accept a guy like Manuel Charr is if, as I pointed out a couple nights ago, is if Anthony Joshua did a George Foreman and fought Trevor Bryan, Manuel Charr, and Michael Hunter on the same night. But if we get Michael Hunter again, I think it's a better option than even Trevor Bryan or Manuel Charr at this point. Hunter proved that he was pretty good. I mean, if you follow his career, he did well in the Olympics for an American. He performed admirably against Alexander Usyk. A lot of us were pretty surprised by that. He lasted the distance where, a lot of opponents weren't able to. And I think he's a pretty well-rounded guy. I mean, even at heavyweight, he's better at cruiserweight, obviously. He's a little bit quicker and his size matters a bit more, but his hand speed's pretty good. He's got some boxing skill. And I like that he's a go-getter. He just doesn't seem like one of those guys who's going to pack up and go. So I would expect a commendable effort for him. But against a guy like Joshua, I just think it's only a matter of time before he gets stopped. But, we never know. Again, in terms of the options that are being floated around so far, I think it's one of the better options. But if they can get Luis Ortiz or somebody like that, that's preferable. But Hunter, I think, is a good fighter.
My question in all this is this. And I think this all goes back to Canelo. Povetkin, Ortiz, all three did stuff similar. All three got busted. All three still fought for the world title. So how can we expect guys to be clean when the money is as big as it is, and when they've seen in the past, Canelo last year got busted. He cheated. He just did. And they suspend him for 6 months, push his fight back 6 months, and then he still makes all that money. He still fights. He still gets the gift in the decision. Luis Ortiz tested positive. He still gets to fight for the title. Povetkin tested positive twice. Last year, we watched him fight for the title. What is the incentive here not to cheat if they don't actually do something to people that cheat?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, exactly.
So at worst, you're going to take a year off. You're going to come back, and a year later, you're fighting for the heavyweight championship of the world again.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't discount Miller's shots altogether anymore. I mean, even if he's been popped 3 times and he's going to be a joke from here on out, he's going to get all sorts of flack, and he's never going to live this down, to be honest with you.
Still going to get another shot, though.
Exactly. I mean, as weak as the heavyweight division is currently, I know a lot of people are high on it. And again, there's a possibility. Honestly, you never know. Miller, he never really struck, Mike Uriah is really an excellent fighter, but he's got good size. He had a bit, good work rate. His power is okay. As the state of the division as it is, I mean, Luis Ortiz is, 40 years old. Alexander Povetkin is about 40 years old. They're two of the best in the world. Dillian White has already shown his peak where, when he got stopped by Anthony Joshua. The division is not particularly deep right now.
Well, what proves that? There's 3 guys that claim to be heavyweight champions. And let's just say Michael Hunter's who Joshua fights. The 3 heavyweight title fights we'll see over the next couple months include challengers of Michael Hunter, Tom Schwartz, and Dominic Brazil. That right there should tell you this division is not that good.
Yep. Sorry. And that should tell you that Miller's shots at, getting another opportunity are not that bad, no matter what his sentence is.
Yeah, because then it'll be like Tyson Fury. It'll be redemption for him. And he was depressed when he was suspended, and he ate himself to 700 pounds, but now he's down to 500, and we're going to give him a shot at the title.
Yeah, and you're gonna keep seeing this stuff repeated. It's good, like you said. I mean, when there's not serious repercussions for this stuff, you're going to see it happen time and time again. I mean, it's just concerning how many guys have been popped so far. I mean, you look at Miller, you look at Ortiz, you look at Povetkin, you look at Erkan Tepper, you look at, I don't think Tony Thompson is. I don't think he's active anymore, but he was popped. Shannon Briggs was popped. Who else am I missing? There was a Polish heavyweight who was popped.
There's a lot of people that have been popped, and they don't even have
Tyson
stringent
Fury,
testing.
Tyson
the fact
Fury,
that there's not stringent testing tells you if you could sit there and name guys for a couple minutes, there's probably about 20 times that you can't name that are on this. Now, if something wanted to be done about this, why couldn't we just ban them for life or suspend them for 5 years? I mean, something stupid to get their attention, because this is something that either they need to make it legal to do whatever the hell you want, or they need to crack down and stop this at some point, but they're not going to do that, because when we look at it, I mean, Mayweather, Pacquiao, Canelo, all these guys have been busted, or we know pretty much for sure, Holyfield. We know these guys were on that. So when we look at it, we've either got to stop it, or you just got to open it up and let it be the wild, wild west. Every man for himself, take whatever you can, and then go beat the shit out of each other. Because that's what we've got. And the problem is, because you get guys like Canelo busted, they're never going to say, well, it's a lifetime suspension or a 2-year suspension or even a year suspension, because those are the guys that bring in the money. They're not going to suspend Canelo for a year. If they were, they would have done it last year. And they didn't. The only thing they did is push his fight back 6 months and let him still fight it, because there's too much money involved behind these guys, which is why nothing's ever going to get done about it.
Yeah, exactly. And when you don't have a centralized governing body, it's especially not going to get done because you're dealing with it on a state by state basis. It's like we talked about Las Vegas, and they have the right approach, in my opinion, where if you get caught, it's your fault regardless. You know what I mean? The onus is on you. I mean, whether you knowingly ingest it or not, it's still your fault. And I
Let
think
me
that's
ask
the
you
right
this:
way
how
to be,
many
especially
people do you think just walking around in the city you live in right now, if you tested them, would test positive for steroids because they didn't know what they were eating? It's just stupid. It's absolutely freaking ludicrous that everybody gets busted. Well, I had tainted meat, or I didn't know this was in my system. It must have come from something else. I mean, it's just horse shit. At some point, you either have to do something about it or you have to allow it.
Yeah. Well, again, that's the problem with boxing, and that's why we're going to have to keep dealing with this stuff. Again, because you're dealing with a state-by-state basis. New York is not as strict as Las Vegas. California is not as strict as Las Vegas. I mean, a place like Missouri is even less strict. You're going to get this time and time again. Nobody – that's the problem is the money. Nobody – the movers and shakers in the sport, if they have to maneuver a guy, even though they know that he's on PEDs – they'll maneuver him into something else. And I got to warn everybody, too. A lot of people talk about VADA, and VADA does a good job. They clearly do a better job than USADA. But I keep trying to tell people this. VADA even says, don't assume just because we're associated with the testing, that means we're doing top-down testing, we're doing the hardest tests available. They say that specific type of tests will be contracted in for certain types of fights. So they might be looking for something in particular, and that allows for a workaround for a fighter. Because if you look at VADA's catch rate, I think it's about 3%. And if you're telling me that only 3% of these athletes are doing it, I'm not buying it. Okay? So VADA does a good job. Clearly they're superior to USADA. But again, we have to be careful with some of this stuff. A lot of these guys are like, oh, well, Kovalev did VADA, or, Anthony Joshua's doing VADA. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, especially if you're only having like a if you're only having like a 6-week window and you're only having them test for specific things. Okay, well then it's just not doing a good job, right? I mean, there's still something there, there's still a check, and that's still a good thing, but we still have to be cautious about what exactly is going on. We have to examine these sort of things. But, back to the original point, Miller he'll probably have a short turnaround time, and then eventually he'll get another shot. I mean, he's still young enough to where he can stay relevant for a while.
But he shouldn't.
Exactly.
He shouldn't. This shit is stupid.
I agree, but it's never going to get cleared up.
Put it like this. I think everybody does it. Everybody does something to enhance what they're doing, whether it's to make themselves faster, whether it's to make themselves lose weight, whether it's to make them bigger. Everybody is doing something. And the sad thing about it is this. Nobody really cares that runs this. I mean, when guys get caught, it's on accident or it's not on accident. Because when you look at it, Canelo and Triple G, I think, this, to me, became a bigger fight because of the steroid thing with the combustible. It became bigger. And when you look at this, I mean, with what he's taking and what we've seen him do in the past with Jarrell Miller, I think it's safe to say that he's been doing this more than just the last few months. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, like you said, if he had already been caught before he even started his boxing career, I mean, what do you think?
All right, so follow along here. Deontay Wilder is fighting the number 4 contender, who's the mandatory challenger, Dominic Breazeale. Tyson Fury is fighting Tom Schwartz. So the only guy that was really fighting any kind of a threat was Anthony Joshua. And now that threat's been removed, and he's going to fight somebody that's not very good. Is it completely impossible that maybe Jarrell Miller, people knew what he was taking, and they took him out?
Yeah, well, quite possibly. Actually, there has been a video that surfaced with Deontay Wilder, and I got to give him credit. I mean, I know we're not big fans of Deontay Wilder on this show, But he called. I can't remember where it was from, but there's this video of Deontay Wilder being filmed as he's driving, and he's talking about Jarrell Miller. He's like, "Hey, we know things about you too, baby," and he said that Jarrell Miller was doing PEDs. He said some other stuff that was a little off, but he said it before. But I think he was accusing Dillian White of doing it too. And I know White was caught, I think, in his amateur days. But
no, like I said, I'm sure they're all doing it. I'm sure Wilder's doing something to make himself better, because why wouldn't he? And if he's not, he's stupid. But the thing is this: Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder are going to be protected right now. They're not going to get busted for anything. And I'm sorry, but I look at Anthony Joshua. I'm not blind. I'm not stupid. And this is not because I'm an ugly American. Because I hope if he's taking something, he keeps taking it and he kicks the shit out of Deontay Wilder. But you can't tell me he's not on something. You just can't.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's my thing, too, is a lot of people – that's what I say about the VADA testing and stuff. And, I saw this page on Twitter today, or it was yesterday, I think, and they were like, oh, well, Anthony Joshua was paying $100,000 to be tested. And I asked for a source for that, because there's no damn way that you're doing VADA testing to pay $100,000. I mean, that's Mayweather territory. And if you're paying $100,000 to be tested –
you're getting the result you want.
That's hush money. That's not testing money, because VADA testing is like $30,000, and it's actually more of a bargain than USADA is. I mean, again, Mayweather is paying USADA that sort of money, and so if you're paying somebody $100,000, that's hush money. That is not drug testing money. Again, this stuff only costs about $30,000. But that's my thing, man. Is again, I'm with you. I think most of these top-level athletes are on something. And when
that's
you look
in
at
every sport. We're not just talking about boxing.
Every sport. I mean, just go watch Bigger, Stronger, Faster, the documentary. I mean, they admit that archers in the Olympics are taking downers so they can concentrate better.
I would tell you that well over 50% of college athletes are too.
Well, exactly, because put these things into perspective. And I know we like to moral grandstand and whatnot, but let's imagine, okay, that – your son has an opportunity. Let's imagine that taking PEDs or, whatever this performance enhancing drug is, your son goes from a 4.6 40 to a 4.4 40 as a wide receiver. And that difference can see him, either making a Division I team or a Division II team. And making a Division I team means that your chances at getting into the NFL, right, for substantial more money in terms
are
of
much better.
Much, much better. So you're telling me these baseball guys, when they, if the difference is between hitting a double or hitting a home run, what do you think these guys are going to do? I mean, we're talking about big business here, and it's almost never brought up when you talk about the NBA. I don't even know what the hell the NBA does in terms of drug testing.
How about this, Jeremiah? If you ever pay attention to college football and you look at the number of offensive linemen that are redshirted their freshman year at college, the reason they're redshirted usually is because when they were in high school, they were taking stuff. They get them to the college, they redshirt them, they get them off the stuff and get them working with a strength and conditioning coach, and then they don't lose anything from it. They don't get busted, so they wouldn't lose a year of eligibility. And then their next year, they've got 4 years to go, and they're clean.
Yeah. Well, and there's been studies that I'd have to find it again, but I think it was New Scientist. I can't remember, but there's been a study that says that PEDs you may see the effects forever after doing them one time. After one cycle, again, you may see it forever.
Yeah.
Okay. So regardless if guys are cycling on and cycling off, it may not even matter that much. But like you said, let's imagine that you're in the NBA. I wanted to go to that example. I don't know what they test for, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, why would you use PEDs for NBA?" Well, why wouldn't you? I mean, there are PEDs that allow you to recover from workouts quicker. There are PEDs which increase your stamina. If you want to play the entire game every single minute, well, then why the hell wouldn't you do that? I don't know what they test for, honestly. But in the NBA, put it into this kind of context where NBA players get these big guys get guaranteed money. right? So that's why a lot of people play in the NBA now because it's guaranteed, right? You get guaranteed contracts, and that means your long-term prospects should be better than they are at other sports. Of course, that doesn't always work out. I think baseball's a bit better with that stuff, but that's the difference, right? If it means you jump half a foot higher, or you can shoot longer baskets because your arms are a bit more muscular, that's what these guys are going to do. And I mean, imagine you're a parent and your son has
That's my
potential
question
going
to
in.
you. Your son's 17. He's going into his senior year of high school, and a college recruiter says if, he gets 20 pounds bigger, he'll get a scholarship. And that scholarship's worth $160,000. Are you going to put him on something like Diana Ball to get that 20 pounds and to get that scholarship? Or are you just going to tell him to keep working and hope it works out okay?
Right. And I think those are.
That's a question, Jeremiah, to you about your son.
No, I'm not. No, I mean, see, the reason I wouldn't do it is, I do, I do put fairness on a pedestal, but my kids, I don't really want them to be sports players. So that's not a hard choice.
That's not the point. It's not even your kids. It's just a hypothetical question.
Right. Well, I mean, it's tough.
And then we tell you a little bit later that 5 years later he gets drafted in the first round by the Broncos and he'll get a $30 million guaranteed contract. You putting him on it or not?
No, I'm not.
$30 million?
I'm not.
I would put my cat on PEDs for $30 million.
Listen, I'm not doing it, but this is the thing. I think that it's a great question because it puts things into context, and I think we do that pretty well on this show. Is that it's like a lot of these football players come from poverty, right? I mean, they're poor. A lot of these football players, NBA players, they come from very little. Of course, that's being poor in America is not quite the way it is in other sports, but. A lot of these guys are living in poverty, and you tell their parents like, "Hey, this is the difference between the NBA and just being in the NCAA." Of course.
Well, how about this?
Especially
though?
when you.
This is the other thing people don't realize. What if I told you your kid's going to go play a Division I sport, say football, and everybody else is doing this? It is damn near unsafe if you're a professional boxer right now to not be on something.
Yep. No,
I think that is the real quandary. If your kid is in a contact sport and you've got 70% of everybody else doing it, it makes it more hazardous to his health to not take it than it does to take it.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And I think that's what people miss here is the danger, and the danger comes from the people that actually do things the right way, which is why either it has to be completely legal for everybody, or you got to start kicking guys out of the sport for life to get the attention to stop it, because somebody's going to get hurt at some point.
Yeah, well, and to be honest with you, we don't even know if it's happened so far. I mean, we look at the guys in the 80s, and, a lot of these guys are put on a pedestal, and, maybe they were clean, maybe they weren't clean, right? But, I mean, the 80s to me is, at least from what I heard, is, really when it started, was saturating
really
sports.
Really the 70s. If you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, their offensive line, the 70s is where it started. Now, the thing about the 70s and 80s was it wasn't nearly as safe as it is today. And that may sound nuts, but if you're taking steroids.
No, you're right.
The one thing you have to do with the steroids is you have to take some kind of liver care product to protect your liver. Back then, they didn't know that. And if you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line from back then, I don't think they had an offensive lineman who lived past the age of 55. And I think steroids may add something to do with that, because until the last decade, I don't think people really knew that you got to do something for your liver, and you have to cycle off. My experience with it is this. When I was a head coach for the first arena football team I coached, I had a player that did this all the time. He was 38 years old. He wasn't very good. He was hanging on by the skin of his teeth. He was the last guy on the team, and he was the last guy on the team because he didn't need housing, because he lived like an hour from where we played. And he was on so many steroids, and the problem was he never cycled off. And like a year after that season, after he'd been cut and everything, I found out, well, hell, he's in a wheelchair and he can't even walk. And it took probably 6 months to a year for him to be able to walk again to get his system clean enough to do that. So the fact is this: they're safe enough to take now, not the crap that Miller was taking because it was poison, but they're safe enough to take now that if you use a doctor with it and you put in your body what you should to help with it, it's not really that dangerous for you anymore. So then the only danger is to the person who's not taking it, who's lining up against you.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point too, and I encourage everybody to go watch the documentary Icarus, which kind of touches on this topic actually, where this guy, he's a cyclist and he wants to improve himself, but he wants to document himself getting on PEDs and see how much he can improve himself. And then, eventually it snowballs into this whole Russian cover up in the Olympics and Sochi and other stuff. So it goes off topic. But if you follow that along, this Russian guy is telling the cyclist how much of this he should take, how much of that he should take. He has the guy monitoring the entire thing. And if you don't think that there are a ton of doctors who are doing this as a side business, I think you're nuts, honestly, because this is why a lot of doctors have gone into the sports industry, because that's where the money is. I mean, if you can just work with a guy who busts his knee and help him along, or do surgeries on sports athletes now, and then maybe do PED programs on the side and make pretty damn good money doing so. Again, like you said, man, it's not the way it was anymore. You can get these guys who are professionals. They've had decades to work with it. We've got better technology which monitors this sort of stuff. My only contention with what you said is it is safer to do it in the short term. In the long term, we don't really know. I mean, I haven't heard of any peer-reviewed science tests that have been done long term with these PEDs. So again, I don't know how it affects guys in the long term, but you're actually right in the short term.
Actually, I saw, you've seen the series HBO Real Sports.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I saw an episode a few years back about the use of steroids and whether they're safe or not. And actually, if you look, the American Medical Association has put out something saying that they are not detrimental to your health. And they had on like 3 or 4 bodybuilders that were in their 70s that were still using it. Because the big thing in 1980s was that it would kill you. And Lyle Alzado claimed that he got brain cancer from taking steroids, which they showed on there was absolutely impossible to get brain cancer from it. Basically, the people that get harmed by it, the people that die from it, are the people that do not take it in a correct fashion. And when the AMA, and I watched that show and I went and I looked it all up, and you can find articles from the AMA saying that there are no ill effects as long as they are taken the right way. And when you look at that, and you look at all these guys that are 70 years old running around still taking steroids, I mean, it's knowledge is the key here, and if you have the knowledge, you can do it safely. Now, the problem is, we're to a point in sports where you always hear people in baseball, it's like, should Roger Clemens be in the Hall of Fame or Barry Bonds? The problem is, Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds were guys that were not well liked, so they're kept out. And the reason I lead this here is, where I'm leading this is this. Tiger Woods, everybody freaked out and, had a huge, it's the greatest thing they'd ever seen when he won the Masters last weekend. But people don't remember that there are like 2 links to PEDs with Tiger Woods. And they were all around 2007 to 2010. He had the same doctor, the same Balco lab as Alex Rodriguez. And, he was in a wreck 2017 Memorial Day. He got a DUI arrest. And there were so many drugs in his system that it was amazing. And this was less than 2 years ago. I mean, they found Vicodin, the Alligator, whatever the hell that is, Xanax, Ambien, THC. Cause
he was having a good time, man.
Yeah, he likes a little of that wacky backy. But to me, the comeback comes short because, I mean, the dude was cheating. And the thing is, since everybody likes him, nobody cares how many times he cheated on his wife. Nobody cares that he took PEDs. And there was in 2010, they did a survey of PGA stars and asked how many of them thought Tiger Woods, how many were 100% sure that Tiger Woods was on something. And the thing was, it was like a third or a fourth of all PGA Tour pros were 100% sure he did.
Wow. I think that's hey, you're killing it tonight, Mike. I mean, I love that point because it's just so right, man. It's like, so you look at Povetkin and how much crap he's got. I mean, I think he seems like a nice guy. I know
but he's the big angry Russian everybody over here, so they want to persecute him.
Exactly, dude. They want to string him up. They want to nail him to a cross and act like he's some
and with
shiny
Tyson
example.
Fury, they see the big lovable gypsy. So fuck it, we'll let him do whatever he wants.
Yeah. Even though they said, I think with the amount of crap that he had in his system, they said he had to eat a whole boar or something. And so this is the thing: is Povetkin is always getting crap for his positive tests. Okay, well, what do you hear about Ray Beltran? How often does that shit come up? No, it's
Never.
whenever. It's exactly. It's like whenever he was going to fight. They
how
had
about
to use
this? Before we get off the Tiger Woods thing, Tiger Woods around 2005 to 2008 bulked up big time. If you look at a picture of him from like 2000 compared to a picture of him in 2009, it looks like a 12-year-old boy compared to a small-time bodybuilder. And the point here is this: those PEDs, taking it for 3 or 4 years and bulking up in an odd way, which is he bulked up quickly, like within a 2-year period, is probably what contributed to his back problems, which is what led to a cocktail of prescription drugs topped off with some weed. And yet the guy will be glorified because he's Tiger Woods. And we can't say anything bad about Tiger Woods because, we all love him because he's great at what he does. When Tiger Woods is a scumbag who cheated on his wife, he took prescription performance-enhancing drugs to bulk up, and then because he bulked up on PEDs, he threw out his freaking back because he did it in such an odd way and so quickly. And then, 7 years later when he comes back and wins, we don't question why he did because I don't think that we test PGA Tour pros. But maybe they should test everybody. No, they don't want to know. And that's the point to all of this. Evander Holyfield. Everybody loved Holyfield. We're not questioning him. We're not trying to catch him.
We loved him. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I loved him. I don't care what he did because every time I paid $40 for a pay-per-view fight, he gave me my money's worth. But I am not dumb enough to think that the body he had in 1988 could naturally beat a body he had in 1993. It doesn't happen because as you age, it is harder to put on muscle. So this whole thing is a complete and utter scam, and it's basically people picking, well, we love this guy, so we're going to act like it didn't happen.
Exactly.
This guy we hate, so we're going to fucking crucify him. That's what it is.
Right, yeah, and think about Evander Holyfield too. It's like he was tied to the Balco lab, and he was they got his name. It was as what Evan Fields, but it goes deeper than that. A lot of people seem to forget that he was working with a guy who's like Mr. Universe 3 times, a guy who was clearly on steroids. You don't think he would? Come on, I mean, just look at the body transformation, like you said. The deltoids and everything. I mean, it's plain as day in my opinion.
Oh my God, his neck looked like it grew arms out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and no wonder why he was able to take heavyweight punches. I mean, just the shock absorption from the neck and the deltoids alone. It's. But yeah, this is exactly why I don't put. I have my favorites in boxing just like everybody else, but I don't put any of these guys on a pedestal. I don't deify any of them because it's likely that a lot of guys are they're just using, man. It just is what it is. I mean, just because you take VADA once or twice in your life doesn't mean that you're, a clean athlete. It doesn't mean that at all. I mean, and if, like I said earlier, if you're using VADA and you're only doing it within a 6-week window and you're only having them test for, one particular thing or, again, you're contracting something particular, for 6 weeks. Okay, what good does that do? Yeah, I mean, maybe if you drill Miller and you're using everything under the sun, maybe it does matter. But you're just right, man. I mean, it's like Usain Bolt. I am absolutely 100% convinced that he's on PEDs. And you go to. I actually got kicked off the Olympics page for bringing this crap up, but
because they protect him.
Exactly. So think about it. The reason why Usain Bolt will not get caught until later on is because of the Nike endorsement deals. The government granted him like a $2 million house or something, gave it to him. You just look at it because everybody has some weird infatuation with a guy who runs quickly in a straight line, and the fact that he's been able to break records.
Yeah, but you know what? Ben Johnson got busted for it because nobody liked him because he was an asshole. And when they took it away from him, they gave it to Carl Lewis, who everybody loved. And Carl Lewis got busted for it later.
Yeah, and I think it's just a matter of time until Usain Bolt gets caught too. So I mean, think about this stuff. And again, a lot of people like to think that it's the nation's food or it's just natural. He's just a genetic freak. Dude, just about everybody in the top 20, like the top 20, 25 fastest times ever, everybody has been popped for PEDs.
Enhanced.
Everybody has been popped.
How about this one?
Except Usain Bolt.
This one is perfect because this is the face of the NFL for the last 20 years was Peyton Manning. You remember the neck injury he had in 2014, 15, around there? Do you remember the HGH that was sent to his house?
Yeah, I don't know what became of that.
Yeah,
to be honest with you.
Nothing became of it. But what it was is, I guess, they claimed that it was sent to Peyton Manning's house for his wife, Ashley, who needed an HGH prescription. And I guess Al Jazeera busted him on this. Now, everybody in this country acts like Al Jazeera, well, they're Muslims, so they're going to lie about Peyton Manning. But the thing was, Al Jazeera did this big expose in 2016 or so on this. And the amount of HGH that was sent to Manning's house is like unreal. And then they tried to claim that it was for an undisclosed condition to his wife. Now, the lawyers actually let them know what Ashley Manning's condition was. Al Jazeera did not publish the name of her condition, but it did send emails to like dozens of medical experts asking if the drugs was a legitimate treatment for her condition. Now, the Denver Post and the Indianapolis Star and the Indianapolis Post all basically reported that every one of these experts said the HGH was not a prescribed or permitted treatment for Ashley Manning's condition. The Indianapolis clinic that prescribed the medicine, the Geyer Institute, specializes in anti-aging treatment using HGH for anti-aging treatment. And that would be an illegal use of the drug if they sent it to her. And the thing is this, since it's Peyton Manning, Mr. Goody Two-Shoes, who makes the funny fucking commercials, we don't hear about it anymore. Everybody says, well, it was Al Jazeera. They're Muslim, they're foreign, they're just lying. But what does Al Jazeera have to gain from this? Because I don't think they care about the NFL anyways. But they busted his ass, and it was let go. Next thing you know, a couple years later, he wins the Super Bowl because he got the HGH to fix his neck, and now he's a hero again. And it's bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, did Peyton Manning ever say something that's anti-Islam or something? Yeah, I don't remember that, so it doesn't seem like there's any reason to target him. But like you said, man, I'm just going to use my Usain Bolt and finish that because I think it's a pertinent example. So he's breaking the records of everybody who's been using. And so you take into account his running times, right? He runs a 10.07 in 2007, and in 1 year's time somehow he improves upon that. So the guy's not even considered a top. He's not considered, a favorite for the Olympics. This guy basically just comes out of nowhere. And so he goes from a 10.07 to a 9.79, I think it is, in 1 year's time. Okay, if that doesn't raise red flags. Okay, I mean, of course, the official story is, oh, well, he just liked it and he dedicated his life to it. And that's, how he improved. Okay, well, Memo Heredia, who has a pretty bad reputation in boxing circles and in sports circles altogether. This is a guy who was also connected to the Balco, worked for the Balco lab with Victor Conti. He did an interview with Der Spiegel, a German newspaper, before the 2008 Olympics. And they asked him straight up. They were like, okay, well, how do you go from, a 10:07 to, a 9:79? And he's like, it's the drugs. It's the drugs, right? He's like, naturally, you can't do that sort of thing. And then he improves to a 9.58 or something. The shit's just not natural, man. I mean, the fact that he's breaking records of a bunch of PED users, I'm not buying it. I don't buy it at all. I mean, and not only that, they if you look at all the Jamaicans who have been caught afterwards, that raises red flags too. If you Victor Conti talked about this. I can't remember with who, but Victor Conti did a nice, short but informative interview with, damn it, I can't remember the guy's name now, but he was talking about how Jamaica said that their central testing hub or something was in this particular address. And when they investigated the address, when the drug testing officials investigated it, it was a fucking closet, dude. It was a closet. Okay, Victor Conti was talking about how he knows guys who trained right alongside Usain Bolt, and nobody saw any drug testing officials test him. I mean, there was one article, I can't remember where it was from, but I can look this stuff up. It's hard to retain this knowledge. But, there was this thing where nobody tested any of these Jamaican people before the 2012 Olympics for 6 months prior to. I mean, yeah, of course. These guys are all of a sudden people are like, oh, well, why? How's it Jamaica that, you have all these fast sprinters and whatnot? Yeah, it's because they're cheating, man. It's not because the food. It's not because of the whatever you want to say it is, the conditions or, genetically they're predisposed to running fast, because America has a far bigger pool of talent to choose from. It's just our drug testing standards, even if they're not that good, they're much better than Jamaica. So, again, none of this is surprising. But like you said, man, it's all just like some guys get it, some guys don't. Tyson Fury, you barely hear it anymore. Alexander Povetkin, you hear it all the fucking time. Louis Neary, he gets brought up sometimes. It's just it's willy-nilly with this guy. And it's all like you said, it's all kind of whimsical and with the feelings of the crowd. It sucks.
Yeah, it does. But, anyway, all right, we got anything else for tonight? Because I don't even care about the on this day. If you want to keep talking about the steroids, we can now. I like that.
No, I have a couple things. I actually got a question. I got one question from, give me just a second here. Got my messages. Hamad Zaman, who I thank again for chiming in. And we got to get you on the show. We'll get you on the show next week.
Hamad, you might as well come on the show if you're going to ask questions.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you want to come on Monday, let me know, and we'll get you on. This week it's been kind of busy for us, but we'll get you on Monday if you want. Anyways, before I ask this question, I want to talk about the PEDs just slightly. There was no post-fight drug testing for Jaime Munguia and Dennis Hogan, and I've heard a lot of people bringing that up, and I just think I should shed some light on it because – we told a lot of us are starting to hate Oscar De La Hoya quite a bit here, and that just seems like one of the reasons. Just kind of tack on, no surprise there. What again? But so the question is, sorry, my voice here. I worked out. I just can't seem to get enough water in my damn mouth or something.
Why are you working out your throat? Go ahead. Let's see.
Fuck. Anyways. So the question is, who would we rather see, or who do we want to see Joshua fight next, Ortiz or Hunter? And I'll just take that real quick. I would much rather see Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz, to me, has a better reason for not taking the fight because, he's a top fighter. I think he's more in a position to man having a full training camp. But I honestly don't care. I mean, he's 39 plus years old. He very well could be a lot older. I know Rick Glazer's posted about this and heard from a Cuban amateur boxing coach that he's like 46 at the moment or something. For me, I would like to see Luis Ortiz, even if the training camp is not full. Ortiz is just the best option available. And so, I think Joshua would win that fight still, but Ortiz has got some skill and he's interesting. And I think Joshua would learn a little bit from that fight too, because Luis Ortiz is a crafty southpaw. So that's my input.
Yeah, I don't think it matters. He beats either one of them. I've never been impressed with Ortiz. I think he's a guy. If we would have saw him as a pro 15 years ago when he was in his 30s, I think that we would be able to see more from him, but I'm not impressed with him. It's not like he's got a bunch of high quality wins, and I just think he's older. I think Joshua would wear him down and probably stop him in the eighth or ninth round. I think it would be much more interesting to Michael Hunter, who I think Michael Hunter needs to take steroids for the next year or two so he can get his weight up, get his muscle strength up, so he's got a chance.
Yes, sir.
And maybe he's already doing that, but
Yeah, he's got to do better. Whoever's put him on that PED plan, they got to get better.
But all right, anything else, Jeremiah?
Nah, man, I'm PED'd out.
Yeah, I'm PED'd out too. So you'll have to change the headline for the show. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. We will be back Monday night at 11 o'clock Eastern to talk a little boxing. Will there be an Inside Boxing Weekly Sunday night, Jeremiah, or did you and John talk about it?
I haven't thrown it by John yet, but I'd like to do it Sunday if we can.
All right, so look out for that Sunday night. Just follow us on Twitter. You can find that there. We also now have a Zeno radio app, which is available on the iTunes Store and on the Android Store. So whether you got an Android phone or an iPhone, you can go ahead and you can take the grueling truth with you, and we can tell you all about PEDs. But also, I would like to bring up this. Peyton Manning's lawyers thought about suing, but when they met with Al Jazeera's lawyers and Al Jazeera showed them what they had for evidence, there was no lawsuit. So I just wanted to leave you with that. But we are going to go ahead and wrap it up. I want to remind everybody to check out the Retired Boxers Foundation and MyBookie.ag. Click on the banner for the MyBookie.ag at the top of thegruelingtruth.com. Make sure you download our app on the iTunes Store. Make sure you give us a like, a comment. We appreciate it. So, once again, we're going to wrap it up for tonight. We will be back Saturday night or Sunday night for Inside Boxing Weekly. And I want to remind you, tomorrow on the Sheridan Report, maybe we'll talk a little Amir Khan and Terrence Crawford, since Amir Khan's only like a 9.5 to 1 underdog, which is a pretty close matchup nowadays. So me and Bobby Sheridan will be on tomorrow at 2 o'clock to talk NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, Major League Baseball, and maybe a little bit of boxing too. So check us out on thegruelingtruth.com tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap the show up. And I want to remind you all, you can hear us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Jeremiah Preisser, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.